Here's a question that we'd all like the answer to. What's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? Why do we ask this? Why do we have to ask this? Fundamentally, it's because we think we don't have enough time and consequently distribute our resources so thin that we achieve little or nothing. In their book, The One Thing, Gary Keller and Papasan reveal that successful people go small. They don't try to do everything. They just focus on the one activity that brings the most reward. They ignore all they could do and focus on what they should do. Join us for the next 10 minutes or so to find out the myths behind doing too much work and why doing just one thing can deliver extraordinary results. Lesson number 1. The myth of to-do lists. Let's look at success. The route to that goal is challenging, and it's not the same for everyone. If it were, then bookshops would only need to stock one book in their personal development section. The same goes for taking action. Different actions have different consequences and different success rates. So how do we decide what to do? How do we make good decisions? One thing the authors are adamant about is the fact that knocking out 100 tasks for whatever reason is a poor substitute for doing even one task that's meaningful. Having a full and comprehensive task list is a burden. It fills our day with unimportant things. Being busy is not the same as being successful. Keller and Papasan demand that instead of a to-do list, we need a success list. A list that is purposely created around extraordinary results. So what is a success list? Let's look back on the 80-20 rule. 80% of our output is achieved with 20% of our input. What this means is that we need to identify and focus on the 20%. What a success list is Pareto's principle on steroids. Take the 20% and apply Pareto again. Repeat and repeat until only one thing is left on your list, and that's the task you should be doing. Now, before we get stuck into that task, there's another key myth that needs to be busted. Multitasking doesn't work. Think of it this way. We have 2 identical Progress cars, but only enough dollars for one tank of Progress gas. Do we fill one or both? Filling both and setting off in the direction of our ambition gets us halfway with each. Alternatively, we can completely reach our destination by using just the one car. As the authors point out, you can do 2 things at once, but you can't focus effectively on 2 things at once. Every time we do 2 or more things at once, we're simply dividing our focus and dumbing down all of the outcomes in the process. Lesson number 2. The myth of discipline and willpower. The next 2 myths to shatter are characteristics that we often admire in successful people: discipline and willpower. Discipline is not a noun. It's a verb. It's something we do, not something we have. In simple terms, discipline is a beneficial habit. When we see people who look like disciplined people, what we're really seeing is people who've trained a handful of positive habits into their lives. That makes them seem more disciplined when actually they're not. No one is. The fact is, we can become successful with less discipline than we think. Success is about doing the right thing, not about doing everything right. Remember our Progress gas? Well, our Progress car is dual fueled. It also runs on willpower. Every morning we start out with a full tank, and as the day goes on, every time we draw on it, we're using it up. As the tank depletes, so does our resolve, and when it's empty, we're done. When our willpower runs out, we revert to our default fuel: blood, sweat, and tears. The point? Willpower is not infinite. Use it with care. If we want to get the most out of our day, we need to do our most important work, your one thing, early, before our willpower is drawn down. Lesson number 3. The myth of work-life balance. Here's a work-life balance history lesson, courtesy of the authors. 200 years ago, the village blacksmith didn't have to stay at the forge until 5 p.m. He could go home when the horse's feet were shod. Only after the Industrial Revolution introduced the concept of large numbers working for someone else did the concept of work-life balance arise. Now in the 21st century, we strive for that elusive ratio. But it's a myth. Work-life balance doesn't support success. The whole concept of balance is to create equality between 2 extremes. Balance brings average, and average means, well, average. Magic never happens in the middle. Magic happens at the extremes. If we want to succeed, a balanced life cannot be achieved. We need to focus on the one thing and lean in its direction, maybe for up to 10,000 hours if we're to believe Malcolm Gladwell. The question of balance is really a question of priority. When we act on our priority, we automatically go out of balance, giving more time to our one thing over everything else. Lesson number 4, finding your one thing. So how do we bring it all together? How do we find that one thing? According to the authors, we need to ask the focusing question. What's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? Let's break it down into 3 parts. Part 1. What's the one thing I can do? Tells us the answer will be one option from many. It directs us to be specific. The last phrase, can do, is our call to action. Part 2, such that by doing it, tells us there's a standard our answer must meet, such that by doing it, lets us ensure our actions will lead to positive outcomes. Part 3, everything else will be easier or unnecessary. This gives us the assurance that good things will come. To make it more specific, we can simply reframe the focusing question by inserting our area of focus or introduce a time frame, such as right now or this year. For example, for my job, what's the one thing I can do to ensure I hit my goals this week, such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? The authors believe that the focusing question is the greatest question we can ask ourselves. But the challenge of asking a great question is that once we've asked it, we're faced with finding a great answer. Answers come in 3 categories: doable, stretch, and possibility. Doable. The easiest answer is one that's already within reach of our knowledge, skills, and experience. We can do it. Stretch. The next level up is a stretch answer. While this is still within our reach, it can be the furthest end of our ability. And finally, possibility. If we want the most from our answer, we must realize that it lives outside of our comfort zone. A possibility answer exists beyond what is already known and being done. A new answer. The authors, however, remind us that achievement of our one thing is not without difficulty. If we lack a big picture view, we can easily fall into promiscuous objectives. In other words, once we get what we want, our happiness wanes because we quickly become accustomed to what we acquire. New objectives then become more attractive. Having purpose helps us. Knowing why we're doing something provides the motivation needed to keep going when things don't quite go right. What's the thing that gets you up in the morning and keeps you going when you're tired or worn down? That's purpose. Live with purpose and we'll know where we want to go. Live by priority and we'll know what to do to get there. Purpose without priority is powerless. We need to set and prioritize our goals. So let's see how the focusing question, together with purpose and priority, creates a plan. Here's how it goes. The 5-year view. Based on my someday goal, what's the one thing I can do in the next 5 years to be on track to achieve it? The annual view. Based on my 5-year goal, what's the one thing I can do this year to be on track to achieve my 5-year goal so that I'm on track to achieve my someday goal? The monthly view. Based on my goal this year, what's the one thing I can do this month so I'm on track to achieve my goal this year, so I'm on track to achieve my 5-year goal, so I'm on track to achieve my someday goal? The weekly view. Based on my goal this month, what's the one thing I can do this week so I'm on track to achieve my goal this month, so I'm on track to achieve my goal this year, so I'm on track to achieve my 5-year goal, so I'm on track to achieve my someday goal? The daily view. Based on my goal this week, what's the one thing I can do today so I'm on track to achieve my goal this week, so I'm on track to achieve my goal this month, so I'm on track to achieve my goal this year, so I'm on track to achieve my 5-year goal, so I'm on track to achieve my someday goal? And finally, the immediate one thing. So, based on my goal today, what's the one thing I can do right now so I'm on track to achieve my goal today? So I'm on track to achieve my goal this week. So I'm on track to achieve my goal this month. So I'm on track to achieve my goal this year. So I'm on track to achieve my 5-year goal. So I'm on track to achieve my someday goal. And that's how you get from lofty vision to pragmatic next steps. So what's the one thing that will deliver exceptional results for your life? Better get started.
Hi, I'm Rhonda, and this is an exclusive audiobook video recorded for the Audiobook Master Channel. Enjoy your audiobook and have fun learning. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button so you'll get updated on our next upload. If you liked the video, give us a thumbs up and say your thoughts about the book we just covered. Do you want to listen to a summary or review of a book that we haven't covered in the past? Say it in the comments below or send us a message. Don't forget to check our other uploads. Enjoy listening!